Good morning, everybody. Well, we're talking about stories today. It's story time on Comics Unlimited. From cave paintings to comic book pages. That's what we're talking about. So get ready.
Welcome to the Comics Unlimited podcast with your hosts, Glenn B. Fleming and Ted Davis.
Hello, everybody. I am Ted Davies. I'm artist and author, best known for Retrieve and Grim 101. How about this guy? Who's this prolific guy sitting there?
I'm Glenn Fleming. I'm an author. I write such as this, which is relevant to this program, about my visits to Jack Kirby. And I also produce this with this guy, Comics Unlimited. And I also write and draw this, of which book number 2 is coming out shortly.
Fantastic. Yeah, the reason why we do this podcast is for this amazing book. I don't know if you guys can see this here, Comics Unlimited. This is issue 9. We're currently working on issue 10 right now. It can be found on Glenn B. Fleming's Amazon page. Check out everything we're doing there. When are we launching that next one? When's the next book coming out?
I think it's mid-August, but it could be before then. But because as you know, it's 100 pages.
Yeah.
And I've got 95 done.
Yeah.
And I've got at least I've got at least 3 more articles to come in. One from you, one from Randy Zimmerman, one from Steve Hooker. So it may be more than 100 pages, or I may just drop a few things. And basically, what I'm trying to say is that it's done, apart from just producing those last few pages.
What's great about it is it's international. It's across the pond, and we're able to do some things that we're with Amazon, which is great. We'll be able to you can get the paper back. You can get the book itself, besides the digital that we also offer across the globe, which is great. So, and if you're interested in advertising with us, let us know. We've got a breakdown of that. We can get with you, personalize something on that as far as advertising for your business. As long as it's comics related, of course. And we're really we're excited about it. We got a lot of things going this year. Some sad news before we start out. We just got news that Alan Grant, the Scottish writer, passed away. He was part of Batman, Judge Dredd. What else? Lobo, I think.
Yeah, all sorts of things. In 2000 AD, he co-created Judge Dredd with Pat Mills.
Right.
I think, and John Wagner, I'm not sure. But he was very, very prolific. I think he didn't he create, I haven't seen this, but didn't he create a 10-year arc in Batman?
I think he might have. Didn't he create Ratcatcher? I think that he did too. That was the other that played in the, I'm reading the thing right now, and Arrow and Gotham, all these shows had his characters in them, which is great. And I think that that's a real nod to him. 73. God. I mean, this, we were just talking before we got on air that, this book here, we've got 3 people that passed away in this, and this is, it's kind of I don't like the word obituary, because I think that that's probably not right. It's a memorial. And this is important because, we're documenting the times right now. I know it sounds funny, but now it's a historical document, because now it's talking about when these people passed away.
Yeah.
So as a collector, I think it's important. We need to do that. I think it's very important.
As we said before, there's 3 people.
Yeah, 3. Yes,
we've got Gary Leach, we've got Alan, and we've got Tim, the artist. Tim Sales, the artist. Which is, I mean, Tim's younger than me, so that's
correct. So we're I appreciate Lewis getting a hold of me a couple minutes ago before we went on air. You already knew about it because you were awake, and that we're just starting up. I've been up since 5, but it's been, it's one of those things you don't see it online sometimes, and I appreciate Lewis doing it.
Yeah, I got a phone call early this morning about it. So,
it's
what can you say? What can you do? It's just...
Well, I mean, that's in this is part of what it's so important. You'll be reading about it in Comics Unlimited next month. Legacy is so important. The things that we accomplish in our lifetime, however small or however great, it's important that it's remembered, it's documented, and what a luxury these gentlemen and these women have had that have been able to see their work published and do something over their lifetimes that has really revolutionized, changed generations.
Published over the past 50 years, maybe.
Yeah, right.
It's crazy. That's a great thing. It's a wonderful thing.
And how many people have been affected by it in a good way? It's like a teacher. If you go back and really look at a good teacher, how many kids have been affected in a good way by their help?
My story on that one with Rapa Nui.
Yeah, exactly.
Mr. Clarkson. Mr. Clarkson went, for people who don't know, read as a book, Kon-Tiki Expedition by Tor Heyerdahl. And he went to, Tor Heyerdahl went to Easter Island, and that basically got me to Easter Island, got me interested in it.
Right.
And then
you went around the world because of an inspired story that you were taught. How old were you? 10 when you first?
No, probably 11 or 12. I'm not sure. Okay. 11 or 12.
But it goes to show you.
And it's always stuck in my mind, the back of my head.
Yeah.
Because as you know, it's the remotest place on Earth. And
your back of your head or the
both,
or the island.
Okay. Both. And so I thought, I'm going. So I went.
That's good.
But the sad thing for me was the fact that was that Mr. Clarkson died only a couple of years before I went. I just wish I could have
showed him. Yeah.
Totally it's your fault. It's cost me all this money.
Yeah. But what an experience. And now you got a book for you're better. Now you brought that experience to the book that you've written too as well, which is fantastic. The photographs are awesome.
Which is what you said about legacy as well. That's what I've done. I'm grateful that I've been able to go to the place and then write about it and produce a legacy of it.
You don't just have pictures that you have a slideshow at home privately. You actually, now it's an experience everybody else can have too. Yeah. I do want to talk about John Cashman, Cashman's Comics too, before we forget the sponsorship of the show. Check out everything that John's doing. Great comic book shop in Bay City. Say hi to Petey. If you need new comics, check out everything that Cashman Comics does. They will ship worldwide as long as you pay for it, and they will help you out. Check out everything that John's doing. He's been there 26 years. He's absolutely awesome. So check them out. But yeah, it's sad. That, like I said, the changing of the guard is always kind of sad.
Yeah.
And when you look at the stories like we're talking about today, we have to continue on with these stories.
Of course.
Because a lot of them are just. Sometimes it's important to know about the creators too. It might enhance the story even better. Some people not. Sometimes you have to separate the art from the artist, but the majority of the time, it's good.
I think it's a great gift, because think of all the people who don't get to make a mark like writers and artists and musicians and even politicians do, anybody like that. Millions and millions of people who don't either have a gift for doing it, or they don't get the opportunity or whatever, or choose not to do it. But that was one of the things that drove me on earlier when I was younger, was to get one book in print.
Yeah.
Because I knew it would be there somewhere forever. Well, I've got 10 now.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying they're any good, but they're there. They're there. They're there.
Yeah.
So that's something. So the way I am is that I was driven to get that first one published, and now I've had 10 published, and I want another 10 published before I
absolutely
travels.
Absolutely. So, yeah. I think that's we should all be documenting it somewhere, whether you're trying to write something fictional or historical, whatever. And that's one of the things I love about comics, because you can it's a segue. You can get away from the world, or you can write what's in your head and get it down. There's so many options with it. So I do want to say good morning, everybody. Joe Bachman was the first person in the queue today. That's awesome. Good to see you, Joe. Carl, Donna, good morning, guys. All right, and then we got Joe D, Chicagoland. That's good. And there's Lewis. How you doing, sir? Yeah, he was saying that that was the other one that he created.
Strontium Dog, yeah.
I don't remember that one. I'll have to look at that.
You've not seen that one? He created that with Carlos Esquera, the guy who designed Judge Dredd's uniform.
Oh, got it. Okay.
So
Ryan
he
Permisson
died.
also. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, he died a couple of years ago. Carlos Esquera. You've probably seen his
I remember
work.
that. I remember that. Ryan Permisson shared this out. Thanks. Good morning, Ryan. How you doing? There's something about storytelling that I think it's primal with us. I've got good friends, but I've got one that he's an amazing storyteller. Absolutely fantastic. He doesn't write, but he's very vocal, and it's animated, and it's fantastic. Love to. I would actually do a YouTube channel just for that. I would actually put a camera in front of him, let him do his thing.
Well, you should.
And I've told him that. And so maybe someday we'll do that. But I think that whether, like we were saying, cave paintings, the storytelling gene is in all of us. And I'm not talking about. There's a difference between storytelling and gossiping. There's a big difference in that. And I see that a lot in a small town here. The gossip, well, I don't care. You know what I mean? Whatever. With storytelling, though, I think that we're really privileged, but we're also we need to tell these stories. Before the written language, that's how a lot of stories were told. This is how we were,
like the Bible, things like that.
Absolutely. So with that, whether it's around a fire at a campfire, or whether it is, like we were saying, in a book, in comic books like behind me or whatever, or in Comics Unlimited, it's paramount.
I think you and I are fortunate because we do both. We draw and write.
Yeah.
And like the saying says, a picture paints 1,000 words. And before the actual language was a written language, you had the storytelling on the caves and all that kind of thing. So how old are those? Are they 40,000 years old, those cave paintings?
Oh, they're older than that. Some of them that they found down South America are even older. So,
So some person, some girl or guy has had that gift of seeing that antelope or whatever it was, and they drew it on the walls to tell, and started to tell us stories, like on the in the Egyptian hieroglyphs and all that kind of stuff. All the story that I don't think that we're told what the actual story is, but that's
another truth monger.
That's a truth mongers program. But it's as old as us. Art. We think of all the artists through the years. We've done all this wonderful work, and then came along the written language, and we can talk about it in the book. You can talk about it in your head as you read. It's just a wonderful thing.
They, that was a lot of power and a lot of control, not teaching people to read. Only the certain elite could read, and that I think that reading is such it's such an amazing thing. But I think it is probably one of the greatest inventions. I mean, one of the best creations that I think we could have come up with.
Yes.
Regardless of what
knowledge,
language
isn't
is.
it?
What's that?
It's knowledge. Knowledge is power. That's
Yeah.
why they stop people reading and writing, because knowledge is power.
But everybody could understand pictures, and that's one of the reasons they have stained glass in church. And there's a lot of reasons why, the psychological side of it and everything else. But as far as that, like I'm going to segue into what Ryan said. Comics are a great way to tell a story, especially those who are visual learners like myself. And I think that like we talk about. My process is I draw a picture first before I start writing. That if I have an idea, a concept, that's the first thing I do. And then I can recall that story, years later. I know exactly what it versus the words of the outline or anything of that sort. So, do you tell stories? Do you tell family stories and that kind of thing? I mean, we do that. We'll talk about, you remember when Dad did this, or you remember
of course.
that kind of stuff.
And we sort of, I would be the storyteller in my family. Not that the others didn't relate stories, but I could tell the story. And I just wonder now, when you keep rewriting your memory, how truthful not truthful, that sounds like you're being deceitful, how accurate, let's put it that way, that actual story was, because we tend to try and embellish things to make it sound a little more scarier or funnier or whatever. And that's the art of storytelling. That's like you do with kids when you're telling kids nighttime stories. And you know, I would always endeavor to scare the child. Just a little bit, just to make it a bit uneasy, not scare it to death or anything like that.
Right.
But tell the story and make it uneasy. And I was going to say earlier about the how we always tell stories about our heroes and villains. There's always, it's the same. It's like the Batman and the Joker thing. It's the same person, isn't it? Other side of the same person. And when you get a hero, if you get like it was a hero, Spider-Man, the Green Goblin is like a reflection of him in a way, because he's just as vital as a foil. Yeah, and we like, you know, if you just told a story about Superman flying around the world, it wouldn't be much of a story. But if you bring the other elements into it, and this is the great thing about the visual thing, as I've said before, the words are just scenery. You don't need to know his name. It's like a silent movie. It works through, which is what Ryan was saying. He's a visual learner, and so the artwork is the greatest thing. Artwork is to me, artwork is over a book, and I love books.
Yeah, and I do too. I you know, my collection here is pretty extensive, and I'm glad that there's some illustrated books in that. But I really think that they also hold their own. I mean, prose books hold their own compared to comics, and they're different. And that's you know, comics can be very exciting and everything else, but there's something about a prose book that's not illustrated that you are immersed in if it's well written. I mean, I completely immersed in. So I don't know. There's a balance to it. But for people, like Ryan was saying, everybody has their own way of learning. So if it makes it easier for you, that's one reason why I wrote Retrieve in a comic book format, because it gets the idea out easily for the most important part of it, you know. So the storytelling, I think that we have a privilege, but we also have a responsibility to tell stories. I know that there's campfires and everything else. You'd have people sit around and you'd start somebody, you'd tell them the story, and then they would tell the next person, they would tell the next person slowly. And then by the end, the last person would have to tell the story to the first person to see exactly if it was the same what they said. And it's a game that we played when I was a kid, and it would always come back differently. It would always be embellished or not, or just forgotten about or rewritten completely. You know,
my dad told me there was a thing in the war. It was what was it? The order, the message was, send reinforcements, we're going to advance. And when it wasn't sent via a walkie-talkie or a radio, it was word of mouth. And when it got back to base, it was send 3 and 4pence, which is money. We're going to a dance. Now, it's not true, but it was the way that it was about the telling lies and the distortion of facts, you see.
Yeah.
And that he was talking about that. But yeah, the thing is about storytelling. I mean, look who tells stories: kids all the way through to politicians. The politicians tell stories, don't they? You know what I mean?
How they get elected.
That's right.
Like Jimmy says, telephone game. Even in the Netherlands, they have that game that I was telling you about. So yeah, they do. They call it telephone here too. So, I don't know. I think that we're, like I said, we're really fortunate because we're in a time where storytelling is actual. It can be agenda for people, and I mean that in the news. I mean that in whatever the case is, it could be very destructive, lying and that kind of thing. But storytelling in the rawest form of what I'm talking about is just duplicating an experience so that somebody else can learn from it or enjoy that.
But the danger is when people are controlled by it.
Correct.
You know, with various books, right? Look at Hitler's book and all that kind of thing, and people that would fascinating read. I don't know whether you've read it, but I don't understand.
Mein Kampf, I mean, I have, but it's diabolical but it's but you need to in order to you need to have bad to understand good, and that's something that I've learned. Yin and yang is very important in life.
I think as a digression, I think one of the most important things that most people miss, and I've probably said this to you before, is the fact that I've read those books like Mein Kampf and things like that to try and understand, not agree. Not agree, because like you said, it's vile.
You don't have to accept the idea
just
at
to
all.
understand, because if you don't understand the other guy, you've got no chance.
Yeah, and that's the world right now.
Yeah.
If you took a minute to listen to somebody, even if you don't agree with them, and it's not violent, intent of listening or whatever, you don't have to accept the idea at all. That's the whole thing. And you and I don't see eye to eye on a lot of stuff, but you know what? Comics, we do. So that's our common ground, our bond, you know. If you guys could like and share this out too, if we're not gabbing too much, that would be awesome. We would appreciate it kindly. And if you haven't subscribed to Ted Davies RSU, we'd really appreciate it. We're trying to get the numbers up right now for obvious reasons. So, all right, what's the best story what is one of the most profound stories that you remember, either in comic books or anything, that really, really hit home and you still talk about today?
Well, I've definitely said this before. This Man, This Monster, Fantastic Four #1. But there'd be a few others if I thought about it, but that's the one that sticks out in my mind.
Yeah.
You know, and it was just, as we said, it's one issue. It's a complete story.
Exactly.
And to me, it's got all the elements in of what tells a good story.
It's the original one shot.
Yeah. And when we've discussed before what it's between, Galactus and the Black Panther.
Yeah.
It's like a pause for breath.
Yeah.
But what a pause for breath.
Right. It
ends up in the negative zone. How's that for taking a breath?
It's just, and it's really mind blowing when you really sit down, like, wow,
Yeah.
It's not nerdum or anything. It's really good storytelling.
What's yours?
Mine, I think
one of them.
One of them is Hellboy. I think that the first really it changed. I mean, I was in my 30s when I read it. 30s? No, I was in my 20s when I read it. And in fact, I've got it right here. Seed of Destruction. I'm getting ready to get this ready to be graded. But that one, there's something about Mike Mignola's writing that it was the idea, the concept of having a demon that's Catholic is brilliant. I mean, absolutely brilliant. It is, he's the apocalyptic monster, but it's his decision, which I think I think that's paramount, because we all have that monster in us in a way.
Have you read Revelation recently?
What's that?
Have you read Revelation recently?
Yeah, right. Well,
God, so nothing more apocalyptic than that.
Yeah. And again, and those stories can be very controlling too. There's a lot of people that it becomes so much of a directive that there's no return from it.
It's scary, yeah.
But one of my favorite stories was told by my father, and it was it's a Welsh story. It's about a dog called Gellert, and Gellert was a king's dog. And I don't know if you've ever heard the story or not, if you've been to Bay of Gellert in Wales or anything. So the queen and the king left for I don't know if it was, I think they were a function or something. They're going out to, this was back 1,000 years ago, and they left the nanny and everything there, but they have this dog, this hound. It was one of these really tall, it was a hunting dog, but he protected the prince, the baby. That was part of his duties in that. And they left and they went to their whatever they were doing for that evening. They came back and the baby was screaming. The maids and everything had run out of the house, and the bassinet was kicked over. There was blood all over the room, and Gellert was sitting on the floor with blood all over his mouth. And they figured he went mad and attacked the baby. So, and the king pulled his sword out and killed the dog right there. And this is a dog they loved. They've raised since a pup, you know. And the queen went over, picked up the bassinet, and there was a wolf underneath the bassinet. And what the dog had done is the dog had killed the wolf. The baby was still alive, but they thought, and they were so remorseful and about the dog as they ended up burying him in this there's a tree that's marked by the bay, and they named it Bay of Gellert, and this is where this dog is laid to rest. Beautiful tree that's growing out of the grave and everything. But that's the story. And for whatever reason, I told my kids that over the years and everything else, and it's just been a story that I've always loved, you know. But Gellert, yeah, it was quite a. In fact, even my oldest brother named his dog Gellert growing up. So it's a kind of a family tradition. But yeah, it's a pretty famous story. But anyway, but that type of thing is what I'm talking about with storytelling, because those are just as important as what Kirby was doing. I think. And, well, we're seeing it now in the movies. We're seeing it, you know. We're seeing the continuation, that legacy of it. Do you think that there's a benefit in not telling a story? I think some stories don't need to be told, but
that's like the Band of Brothers thing, isn't it? When those veterans wouldn't, they talk about a lot of stuff, but then there was a couple of clips when they're interviewed where they say, "I'm not going to talk about that."
Yeah,
because the enormity of what they saw
doesn't need to be repeated. Yeah.
But in a way, in a sort of a morbid fascination way, it should be. Maybe those guys should tell it and it be put away and released in 1,000 years. I don't know. Maybe that's just me being gratuitous, but I think getting back to the entertainment side of storytelling is what we all like to do. We all like to entertain, or most of us like to entertain.
Yeah.
So we tell a story, and that's, like I said before, we embellish it to make it as great as we can to get that applause, so to speak. But yeah, there are a few stories that shouldn't be told, but there are. I think there are more that should be. You know, like the Holocaust and things like that. We should never forget. They need to be
documented.
Like but the point is that do we need the actual detail? I don't think we do. I don't think we need the detail, but we need to know it happened. You know.
Yeah.
Some people would cover it up, wouldn't they? And
the historical, the unbelievable stories that are, and even today, the horrors that, you know, my thing is there's a difference between informing and then inundating, and then there's another way of storytelling where it's gory just for the sake of being gory.
Yeah.
And macabre, you know, there's a difference. There's a not seeing something is almost as better than in listening to the story. Well, versus then it's like, you know, I mean, so Psycho's exactly what that's what I'm thinking.
That's what I was going to say. You never
that's
see
more
that
powerful.
Knife. You never see that knife going, but that's because that's not a horror film. That's a suspense film. All Hitchcock's films are suspense films.
Yeah. Well, and that's even, let's go back to animation. Bambi, you don't see the mother get shot. But in your mind, you see her get shot, and that, you know, that's So storytelling is a real it's a double-edged sword, like you were saying. It can be. I think it's for the better. I think that we have to. That's how we learn our experiences. My you know.
An interesting story. Another teacher of mine, Mr. Carter. I didn't put him straight because I was only 14, but he was talking about Psycho. And I think it had been shown on television for the first time. So this would be sort of 1969. First time in England. We'd all watched it, and then we spoke about it at school. And he picked up on this and mentioned it. And he said, "Of course, you only saw it in black and white. I saw it on the pictures at the cinema, and it was in color." Now,
I don't think it was.
It was never in color. That was his storytelling in his head, trying to make it a bit more gory for him over us. But it's not in color, so he never saw. There's no color photographs from it. There's nothing in color from it.
Yeah.
So he was doing his own embellishment, but he was mistaken. You see,
isn't that something?
He was trying to make his experience a bit worse than ours on a big screen in color. when we'd seen it in black and white on a small screen. Well, he must have been smoking something if he saw that in color. I don't know.
I know that the blood going down the drain, your mind thinks red. I mean, it does think.
Oh yeah,
red. Absolutely.
Well, your mind thinks the knife's going in, but you never actually see it going.
Exactly.
Whereas you get that carpenter guy, he'd have he'd have arms falling off, wouldn't he, and all that. Sort of stuff,
right.
You know, which is gore, and we don't need that. There needs to be a subtlety. There needs to be subtlety. You don't need to show the final action. You need to give the impression of it going to happen.
Yeah.
You know, which is why Kirby would either draw the fist back here or through.
Like Jimmy says, you can show without showing. Implied things can often hit harder than actually showing it. Yeah, I agree.
And I got pulled up by an editor. I'll send you the pages of a strip I used to do in the 80s, and he wanted the script said to show this guy being stabbed.
Yeah.
Now, I ignored it. I thought it was more powerful just to have the guy with the sword just on his chest, and he's looking. You know what's going to happen,
right?
But he had me redo it.
The anticipation of that action.
He had me actually putting the knife in. I'll send you the pages and show you, and you tell me which is the best.
I'd like to see that. Well, I would think the anticipation of the. Some people, Carl says, some people put in the color in Psycho in their minds and memory. And there's got to be some. Yeah, there's got to be some type of, and they do it without thinking about it.
Yeah,
I don't think it's I'm trying to think here. I've lost my train of thought. I think that there's something to be said though for the. I think that there was a proverb, if I'm not mistaken. Anticipation of death is worse than death itself. I think that's a Chinese proverb. I think.
Well, that's sort of course, isn't it? Because if we're all scared of maybe not dying, but the manner that we might die.
Yeah, or the pain.
But at the end, whatever happens,
it's going to happen anyway, right?
And you're dead, so you're not going to know after the initial realization, I suppose.
Right. And that's the other thing too. She never did scream in the shower. It was the violin. That's right.
That's right.
Screeching. Yeah. And that'll drive you batty too. That is such a. It's so so horrific, but really it's nothing when you.
Those violins were where Paul McCartney got the violin idea on Eleanor Rigby.
Oh, really?
And he told George Martin to write the score because he couldn't write the score, and he said, "I want it to sound like Psycho." So just that sound.
It doesn't though. It sounds
he wasn't
beautiful.
trying to get. He wasn't.
It's melody,
he wasn't trying to get the murder. It was just that sort of sound, that clip sound of that violin. You know.
Mm-hmm. And that's a good point. Let's talk about storytelling in music. I think that every piece of music is a story in a lot of respects for somebody, or it's a recall of a memory.
Well, of
a time, for people.
I don't know what music you listen to, but if you listen to the Beatles records, they're basically about, I love you, you love me type of songs. But if you listen to Kate Bush, she tells stories. If you listen to David Bowie, especially Diamond Dogs, which was an aborted 1984 stage show he wanted to produce, but the George Orwell Foundation or estate wouldn't let him use the story. And he's got a song in there called Big Brother and things like this, and it's all to do with Winston Smith, in 1984, but he wasn't allowed. Could you imagine that? Imagine David Bowie doing that. That would have been absolutely.
He was a great storyteller. David Bowie was awesome. He was very avant-garde at times, but man, he's still
brilliant.
Yeah, I think so.
But if you listen to Kate Bush's work, there's the storytelling in that as well.
Yeah, I listen to a lot of different music. That's one thing. I was asked a couple nights ago on HalloCon show what I listen to. I listen to rockabilly music, but I listen to classical music, and I listen to folk music and all kinds of stuff. I listen to Pearl Jam. I listen to Audio Slave, you name it. So there's all kinds of things.
When I'm asked that question, I'm very smug with it. I just say I just listen to good music.
Fair enough.
Then you cover that from Bach to Led Zeppelin,
Yeah, right.
And anything in between.
Yeah, there's I mean, stories are everywhere. You know, in a picture frame, in photographs that we've taken over the years, or comic books that we've read. You know,
I think an interesting thing about storytelling as well is that police departments and police officers tend, when you're given a statement, tend to not dismiss, but don't rely so much on the eyeball witness, because the same person can be, three people can see the same person running away in different colored trousers or different colored shirt, because of the shock of what we've seen.
Yeah.
And our embellishment of it.
Yeah. How many innocent people have gone to jail because of that?
Well,
in lineups.
Oh, I can tell you a story about that.
You know.
Yeah.
Well, since we're talking about it, that's funny that you say that. I could tell you a story about that. That's funny that you say it like that.
This is a true story. Many moons ago, when my sister was about 9 or 10, where we live, there's a massive wooded area, and she was about 10, and she was with a friend who was 10, and a friend's sister who was 12, and they were just playing in the woods and messing about. And this guy came up to them and he flashed himself. So they ran away, scared. They came home, told my dad. My dad rang the police, and then Joanne, my sister, and her friend said, and her sister, the three of them, all described a guy about 25 with a leather jacket, blue jeans, and long hair. He had long hair. Then this is in the 70s, long hair, and he had a little dog with him on a lead. Oh. Right. So the police descended on the woods, and they arrested 2 people who had the same description in that area. They got them to the police station.
What were the chances of that? Okay.
But this is where innocent people go to jail, or can. They took the elder girl, not my sister and a friend, the elder one, and the police lady said to her, "Is there anything else you remember?" They didn't tell her they had 2 people in custody. She said, "Is there anything else you remember?" And she said, "Yes, he had green underpants on." So they had the guys drop the trousers, and one had green underpants on, and he got convicted. But if he'd have got away and she hadn't remembered the green underpants.
Yeah. So perception is reality. I mean, when it comes down to it, I know there's a lot of people that, To Kill a Mockingbird, for example.
Yeah.
So that story, you know, has a lot of undertones anyway. But
yes, it's been banned, hasn't it, for some strange reason?
What's that?
It's been banned, hasn't it?
Not in my library, no. And I think that it's probably one of the greatest works that
it is. Yeah, it is.
I think it's a fantastic book.
Yeah,
and it puts a lot of humanity. You have to be inhuman to be human. Or excuse me, vice versa. You have to be human to be inhuman. And that's unfortunately that's one of the things in the story that I took away from it. But it's I think again, you're back to perception. Yeah. Anyway, it says more about sometimes more about the person that's telling the truth, if you want to call it that, than the actual person that is the suspect. Yeah. But yeah, storytelling can be a beautiful thing, or it could be a reckless thing. So, and we as storytellers need to make that decision whether we're doing it for the greater good or not. You know,
and it's like they say, don't they? The winner writes history. So the view. But anyway, we're sort of going off the point, aren't we? No. But I just think, just to bring it back, I just think that in the pyramids with all the hieroglyphics and everything written on the walls and everything, you know, the stories on there, whatever they're talking about, you know, which will be a future show maybe. Yeah. But the power of it, I mean, the power of seeing those things. And when I went to Easter Islands, lots of hieroglyphs on the rocks and stuff like that, and they're all telling a story. And I think it's something. I think it's probably it's one of the oldest things we've ever done. You know, like with the cave paintings that we've, and it's also, I think, to leave an impression. Yeah, I don't mean literary impression. I mean to last, longevity. You know,
sure.
We all want to be remembered and all that kind of thing. And like I said before, there's a lot of people who won't be because for whatever reason.
I have the cemetery next door. Epitaphs are, you know, some of them are 2 sentences long. Some of them, you know, and they're leaving it's not just the name, it's how the person died or how the child died or, yeah. And it's, yeah.
I think that in the comics these days, though, from what I've seen, I don't see a lot of them now because I just don't like what I see. But I think there's the gift or the talent of storytelling is lacking in a lot of things. That they're gratuitous in various ways, not good art, and certainly not good storytelling, which is what I think that Kirby and all those people were masters of. They knew how to tell a story, because that was the most important thing. And that's why Kirby always gets berated these days, because he draws different amounts of buttons on things and from panel to panel. That's not the point. He's telling you a story. He's telling you the tunic has a lot of buttons. He doesn't count them. He just draws buttons on it.
I think you're being a little bit too ridiculously, observant. Yeah. I mean, you're missing the point.
Yeah. Like I remember reading somewhere about Kirby, somebody complained that he'd put a safety switch, on a revolver, on a something from your Civil War, where they wouldn't have a safety catch on. Well, so what? So what? The guy's shooting everybody. It doesn't matter what
right. Right. Hey, good morning, Amy. Everybody say good morning to Amy. Hope you're having a good day. Some things happened with Amy, good stuff. So I'm glad that you're home and that you're enjoying your day. Oh, I also want to say shout out to Brian K. Morris if he's watching. I don't know.
Oh yeah.
I hope Cookie's feeling better. I hope you're doing okay. Keep us posted on that. So, I think that storytelling in comic books, I think, is probably one of the truest forms, though. Yeah. You could, if the story had stick figures in it, as long as the story could carry itself, then absolutely it's a good story.
Yeah.
But today I see a lot of it where it's all lipstick on a pig. It's still a pig. You know what I mean? It's not, there's some beautiful artwork, gorgeous artwork, but the stories are so, they're not even.
It's the same as in cinema when they do storyboards. I've seen some storyboards literally of stick figures, and you can see exactly what was supposed to be happening. And I've seen some that are just beautifully rendered drawings, and you think, well, if I was to do it, I would want to do the fully rendered drawings, because I like drawing.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that the person who did the stick figures can't draw. They just realize that what's the point?
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? But it's like with the comic book, we like that fully embellished art and everything, and it works, but it's got to work well, and that is a gift in itself to make it work.
And like I was saying too, I mean, you've got people that do some amazing work that I think that the story is almost lost in the pages is what I get at, what I'm getting at. There's just so much that you can do now with digital and everything else that it makes for a great poster or a great print. But it doesn't make for a great book. You're almost it's everything, and it's sometimes overstimulating to a lot of people that are reading it. It's just too much. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's
we've said it before, but it's like the mistake is the best part, because
the imperfection.
And I just think that people could do a lot worse than read some old stuff, even books. Read old stuff, see how it's constructed, how the writer manipulates the reader.
Yeah.
All the little nuances of little plot lines and all that kind of stuff,
I like seeing like we were talking with the older comic books, the line work with like Joe Sinnott did and that kind of thing, inking and seeing, every stroke tells a story too, because it's not. Some of them aren't perfect. Some of those strokes, you can see a mix, something like a longer foot or something.
Yeah.
And you're wondering what happened that day. Did he sneeze at that point? Did he? What happened? Did they take a break, or was he interrupted right where he was doing? So those are part of the story for me too. Not just
I'm going to been doing this for months now. I haven't got around to it. I'm going to do an article for Comics Unlimited. About the famous Fantastic Four splash page where Reader's got a left hand on his right arm. Have you seen that?
Yeah.
I mean, Jack was drawing very fast, didn't see it. Stan Lee didn't see it as the editor and dialoguer. The letterer didn't see it, and Joe Sinnott didn't see it, unless they said something and they just said, "Oh, just get on with it.
I'll just forget about it. We're under
just,
a gun."
Just get it done. But it's fantastic, and you see it. It's a great drawing. I can't believe that somebody didn't see it.
sometimes when I'm watching some of the YouTube video, even when I'm talking to you about stuff, the stories that are around the books are sometimes more important to me than the book,
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's, again, back to storytelling. So I think that with all of us, everybody that's listening, you figure out what the story is, figure out what your story is going to be and what you're going to be telling, what inspires you, what, if it's in a book form or if it's just, just vocal, you're just trying to, if you know something about a story, a comic book or something that, hey, you know what, I remember hearing about this, that Jack Kirby did this or whatever it is. Those are just as important, I think, as whether it's a key issue or.
Yeah, and it's like it's fascinating to me how things can inspire you. You can see something and you think, yeah, and you produce something, but it's totally different. It'll just click a few switches in your head. It won't be about anything about. It's not ripping it off. It's nothing like that. It's just inspiration coming in there.
Yeah,
but with storytelling, because storytelling can come in lots of ways, can't it? Verbal, comics, books, cinema, whatever, and music. We're just so lucky,
Yeah,
we're
and
so lucky to be alive right now
at this moment.
With all this music and art that's been accumulated
at the touch of a button. I mean, it's amazing. If you look at it from that perspective, I think it's fantastic. The time frame that we're in, and we're able to produce books like this that have a wealth of stories in them about people and about the hobby that we love. Really important. Really important.
People.
Good conversation, man. Well, we're almost an hour. Hopefully you guys enjoyed what we were talking about today. I think that storytelling is who we are. That's us as humans.
Yeah. If you had one thing, we can all do it.
Yeah, we can. And we do. Whether it's a grandmother talking to their grandkid or whatever about, reading a story from a book that we handed down, or whether it's us just talking over a cup of coffee or by a campfire or whatever, that's storytelling. Or if we're painting in a cave 100,000 years ago, it's all storytelling.
Yeah.
Cool, man. I appreciate you. I appreciate everybody checking in on us and, touching base. Hopefully you guys got something out of that and you can tell some stories about us. Have some people follow us on in a good way. Have them follow us on YouTube and the rest of social media.
Don't invite them all to do that.
Yeah, right. If you could like and share this out too, that would be great. Appreciate you, man. Thank you. We'll be doing another show next week, and look for the new Comics Unlimited. It's going to be coming out soon. We'll have that. This isn't it. This is number 9. We've got number 10 coming out soon here, and it'll be offered on Amazon under Glenn B. Fleming's page. Cool, man. All right, I got to write, so I know I got to get going. What do you got going today?
I've got to go and get Helen from work, so that's about my day, and then we'll come back and have something nice to eat, I think.
Good. It sounds like a good story time. So, all right, we'll talk to you later, man. Have a good day, and we'll see you guys.
See you later.
Read something good. Tell some good stories.
Yeah,
bye.
Good.
Welcome to the Comics Unlimited podcast with your hosts, Glenn B. Fleming and Ted Davis.